what it is. Tyrus filling in for the missing in action Brian Kilmeade today. And I'm very excited to talk with my next guest, the Reagan Charleston. She's an attorney from New Orleans, but she's also a reality TV superstar. She's a mother, and she's my wife's best friend. So a lot of hats you wear. And I want to get, first of all, how are you? How's everything?
I am surviving after the holidays, but we're good. I see Georgie's book. That's so exciting.
Yes, it is. As a horse dad, my hustle is on full extent. I got my new book out. I got her book out. So and trying to.
I see yours too.
Yeah, so it's a lot of things going on. Trying to that horse dad life because we just picked up Jigsaw. So I don't need to retire for another year or 10. So, but
No, those horses are going to keep you working, but y'all are an impressive family. I'm so proud of Georgie.
Oh yeah, she's doing it amazing right now. And although your daughter is still the queen of the lemon face. So a lot of people don't know my daughter and her daughter were seeing who could eat lemons without making a sour face, and it got pretty intense there. So it's nice for kids to be kids and little girls to be little girls. And unfortunately, talking about home life and family life, we got to segue into. I can't wait to get your expertise on what's been going on with the Supreme Court and women's sports. And I want to play a montage for you and get your thoughts on this. And you can maybe walk us through this a little bit, trying to make sense of it and try to understand it. Okay, so let's roll that montage.
These cases are about whether right-wing MAGA Republicans get to decide who belongs in society and who does not belong in society.
We have a duty as decent human beings to recognize that trans lives exist. Did you hear me, Secretary McMahon? You will not speak louder or speak over me or over these people.
No offense to Coach Tuberville, but I don't want him deciding who's a girl. I don't want to show him my private parts.
Yeah. I don't think anyone is trying to deny that trans people exist. That's not the issue. And it's not society. It's a very specific thing. Women's competitive sports. You have an unfair advantage because whether you like it or not, you were born with male biology, which means you have skeletal and muscular advantages. Women have different advantages too. You guys are smarter than us. Okay, you guys you can do multitask. We're more one-dimensional. And unfortunately, we got the bronze and you got the brain. So it's this, to me, we should not even be having this conversation, correct? This should not be at the Supreme Court. Do you agree?
Well, I think with the hysteria surrounding, I think that a Supreme Court decision will be helpful. Do I think that will stop the hysteria? No, I don't. At the end of the day, yes, there are biological differences. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a medical professional.
Right.
But I do have a daughter and I have a son. And I can tell you that my son at 4 years old is denser, stronger, faster than my 6-year-old daughter. This is pre-puberty.
Yeah.
And these two cases that we're looking at involve transgender girls, women, that have had hormone therapy, right? And especially with Becky Pepper Jackson, she had pre-pubescent hormone therapy. Like I said, I'm not a medical professional. I do not think that changes the fact at all of what we're looking at here, and that there are distinct biological differences between people who are born as a male and later transition and biological females.
You know what? And you are correct. And I'm not a doctor either, not pretending to be one, but I also feel like this is not necessarily something that needs to go to a medical review board on and here's the thing. You want to go to the experts, and then you get little carrots like this one right here. Let me take you a flashback from Justice Brown Jackson. Check this out.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a biologist.
The meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
So when you hear, like, that's the mindset, is that you can't define anything, but they certainly can define things they disagree with. You know, and this
Right.
is,
And
go ahead.
well, yesterday, for instance, I forget which justice it was, but was questioning the ACLU attorney and said, "Can you define sex? What is sex?" And he refused to answer. And then even afterwards in interviews, he would not commit to an answer on what is sex, define sex. And that's a key issue here. And the two laws that were enacted in Idaho and then in West Virginia, they protect women in sports. That is permissible under Title IX. I do not think that like I said earlier, the hysteria surrounding this, it's not that complicated of an issue. While it is obviously controversial at the time, I don't think that the court is going to have a difficult job in articulating why these state laws are permissible under the 14th Amendment and also Title IX provisions. I do not think they're going to punt this. I don't think that they'll remand it back to the lower courts. I do think they'll issue a decision based upon the questions asked in oral argument yesterday. The bench seems inclined to rule in favor of the states. But it does seem that it will be very narrowly tailored, which if you ask anyone on the students' side, right, this is going to be far reaching. There are going to be tremendous consequences that involve bathrooms and locker rooms and, I mean, run the gamut, right? The court is making clear that they really want to limit the application of whatever the ruling is to sports.
Yes.
And, that's where we're at. And I think it's a very cut and dry decision.
And it's Brett Kavanaugh I thought he made a pretty strong point. If we could roll that for you.
Obviously, one of the great successes in America over the last 50 years has been the growth of women and girls sports. Some states in the federal government and the NCAA and the Olympic Committee think that allowing transgender women and girls to participate will undermine or reverse that amazing success. For the individual girl who does not make the team, or doesn't get on the stand for the medal, or doesn't make all league, there's a harm there.
I think he's kind of, you and him are kind of on the same page on this. And I think it's important that there is harm being done, and it is to young girls. Scholarships being lost, opportunities being lost, or the fear of even trying out. It's a lot of things, but you're 1,000% correct in the sense that it needs to be focused on women's sports because it's a simple answer. And then I guess you can make the argument, well, then they have nowhere else to turn. That's not true. They can play in boys' sports. They can play in young men's sports, and there's absolutely no problem in that. So that's why I'm always kind of leery because there is an opportunity. The difference is that they will be on the same level playing field. So if they dominate, let's say in soccer, and a boy who transitions to a little girl and plays on a boys soccer team, he's not going to have the extra edge. He's not. Whereas if he went to the women's soccer league, he would have a tremendous edge. So I think that's pretty cut and dry.
And, I do want to recognize that this is difficult, for the students that are involved in this impact, but it is a small number of students. And should the states be barred from enacting legislation like this, the impacts are much farther reaching and, as it relates to biological women in sports. And I certainly sympathize with the parents and with Ms. Hecox and Becky, but it's a very difficult road to go down where you would have to force states and schools to act as essentially a medical review panel and look at these specific factual situations, how much testosterone is free floating. And, it just seems like we need to allow the states to enact this legislation, and whether, they are ultimately allowed to play in their state or would have to go somewhere else to play, that remains to be seen. But I think that these laws are indeed constitutional, and I think that that's what the court will ultimately find. And I also think it's important to note that we had a really, great ruling out of the Supreme Court that protected gay and trans employees in the workplace. So this isn't we're not, this was in 2020. So we're not in a day and age where trans people are being just completely discriminated against. There are significant protections. I think this is limited to the situation where you have young women trying to excel in athletes and academic scenarios, and they have to be protected, and there have to be fair rules. And what's, fair for just a few is not fair for the majority, and that's a very difficult place to be.
Well, the defense rests, Your Honor. That was, I can't even comment. That was well done, well said, well put. And I guess maybe that's what we're missing, is just having someone come out and just say it without adding their own personal issues or narratives, because this was something that I think never should have gotten this out of control. But speaking of out of control, there's I want to play one more for you. Keith, number 7, Keith Ellison in Minneapolis, announcing the lawsuit to end the surge of DHS agents in the state.
We're here to announce a lawsuit we're filing against the United States Department of Homeland Security to end the unlawful, unprecedented surge of the federal law enforcement agents into Minnesota, because this has to stop. And we ask that the courts will end the surge of thousands of DHS agents into Minnesota. We ask the courts to end the DHS unlawful behavior in our state, the intimidation, the threats, the violence.
Let me just let's keep this party going so you can get both sides of it. Can we roll number 8, Ellie Hong? Can we do that one?
I've read both the Minnesota and Illinois lawsuits. They're really political diatribes masquerading as lawsuits. If you look at what both states are asking the courts to do, it's to kick ICE out of those states and cities and to bar ICE from carrying on federal law enforcement in Illinois and Minnesota. That's the top thing both states asked to do, and they cite zero precedent for that. There is zero precedent for that. There is no way a judge can say, you federal law enforcement agency, you are not allowed to execute federal law in a certain state or city. You also could have judges that issue sort of symbolic orders along the lines of, ICE, you are not to violate the law, but that's already the case. It's already not allowed for ICE to violate the law. So these lawsuits, which appear to be coordinated, they're potentially powerful political statements, but I don't give them much of a chance of achieving the legal thing that they're asking for in the courts.
Now, you've seen both sides of it. What is your take on this?
This is another very controversial issue right now. And I'm a lawyer, right? And I see things from all sides. And I talk to people all day about these issues. And I certainly sympathize with people that feel scared. But I think like I said earlier, I think things are blown out of proportion. These are federal agents doing their job. And I think that what we saw with the Renee Good situation that has come to a head over the last few days, and it seems like it's just going to get worse. When you have groups of people that are showing up and they're actively protesting and it's getting heated, that is naturally a situation where problems arise. And for anyone to act surprised when you show up and you protest and you engage with any kind of federal agent in the middle of an active investigation, whatever, an active raid, you would have to expect that there is a certain possibility that something could go sideways. I think the activists, and activism is great, protests, go for it. But to be so aggressive with the agents, it's a very difficult place to argue from. And I think what's gotten me the most, and I've sat back and I thought about this, is that I think we'd be seeing a very different perspective from the media if this had been 2 young Black men and not 2 white women. And I think that was the thing that immediately jumped out at me, is that, it was a very different perspective there. It's difficult, but legally the question, really is, did the officer act reasonably under the circumstances? What was happening in that moment? And I don't know that there's enough evidence, or there's certainly a lot of video out. Both sides can argue, but it's, at the end of the day, these are federal agents doing their job. And from what I understand, they were there trying to capture a man who is a sex offender. They're not going in against women and children in this, instance. It was potentially a violent sex offending criminal. And I think we can all agree that those people, should be picked up, but also due process is important. So all of these things kind of swarm in this very controversial discussion right now.
Yeah, I find it's again, the great Scott Adams passed yesterday, but he had one of his most favorite lines, and I think I've already said it once today, but it's two movies on one screen is what is happening, and I think the difference had it been two young black men in that car, I think we wouldn't have had. I think the left would have had more to fire with in terms of like they would make it all about racism, and it's what they wanted. And this one's tough for them in the sense that they're saying white people are the problem and they're the oppressors, and we're on stolen land, and they say all these things horrible about white people, and here's a situation where something bad had happened. Although again, you choose to make those choices, you get real life consequences. But you don't. America, I think, has gone through so much that the average person now is taking the extra second before they react, and I think that's what's the difference is necessarily in this one is that people are like you said, let's let due process fill out. Let's have the investigation. Let's keep an open mind. Let's see what happens, and I think that's the best way. And again, you never ever disappoint. I always come to you so much about legal questions and stuff. You should probably start asking me for a retainer. But I appreciate you so much for coming on today, and best of luck to you, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
What it is, this is Tyrus in for Brian Kilmeade today on the Brian Kilmeade Show. Always excited to be here, and I have my accoutrement of stuff with me. I got my 2 new books. Well, that's one's actually my daughter. And I've had a lot of cool guests, and I'm really excited. From the very first time I even started watching politics as a young man trying to figure out if this was a game I wanted to get into, one of the stoic, straight up, no BS politicians that I always had a tremendous amount of respect for is joining us today, and that is the great Karl Rove. Sir, always a pleasure. Former Deputy Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor to President George W. Bush and Fox News contributor. I actually share a job title with you, which is kind of cool. Obviously, I'm sure it's a different pay scale, but
Yeah, Tyrus, I've never hosted Kilmeade. So you have done something that I have for year after year after year hoped for to be considered, and you're the man in the chair today. I mean, what does that say? Oh,
sir, your sarcasm, it's phenomenal.
No, but, not sarcasm, man. It's praise. It's praise.
Oh, thank you so much. I want to get into your predictions because I'm with you on a couple of them, but your last one, we've got to sit down and discuss. I'm not. But before we do, I would be remiss and completely not doing my job if I did not hit you to get some of your wisdom advice on current political situations. Fellas, please roll number 32.
There's so much going on overseas. Understandably, a lot of your focus has been on other countries. But when I talk to Americans, when I talk to your own voters, they want your focus to be on them, and they feel like it may be drifting. What do you have to say to them?
Well, Tony, we have the strongest economy maybe in the history of our country. Our growth numbers are through the roof. Our job numbers are tremendous. We have the highest stock market we've ever had. Today, we hit every day for the last, I think, 48 times out of 11 months. 48 days out of 11 months, we've had the #1 stock market in the history of our country. So my big focus is here. But you can't be forgetting about bad threats. All of that is for the good of this country. So my focus is very much on this country, but you can't lose sight of the fact that we need peace all over the world.
So he's basically put it in a microcosm. Now, you can spread yourself too thin. I think that is, I guess that is a concern. But I would push back a little bit. He is doing all these things with probably the greatest opposition, I think, and at least in modern times, that a president has faced. With basically every decision he's made, literally half the country has a problem with it.
Yeah. Well, yes, and look, we can get into, is this worse than Lyndon Johnson at the height of the Vietnam War, or, is this worse than Jimmy Carter at the, with the Iranian hostage crisis, and, with double-digit inflation, double-digit interest rates, double-digit unemployment. But the amazing thing to me is how much activity has happened in just less than a year, and also how. I wonder why the administration hasn't taken victory laps more. I live in Texas. I'm coming to you today from Austin, Texas. The border is secure.
Yes.
And the president has never visited the border. If he came to the border, it would draw the nation's attention to it. He'd be surrounded by Democratic sheriffs and Democratic mayors and down here that we call the county executive, the county judge. He'd be surrounded by Democrat elected officials, many of them Hispanic, saying, "Thank you, Mr. President, for stopping this flood that was destroying our communities." And yet he hasn't done it. And but you're right. I mean, there's lots of things happening now of great consequence. We're at the beginning of some of them, whether it's Venezuela or Iran, and it's going to be really important for our country to have these things play out to our advantage.
You make such a great point, and that's something. Do you think that the president or the administration kind of is playing into the hands of the opposition, of the extreme left, by not ever take moments to show people results? Because that is such a great point, because we haven't really seen, we see things get done, and then boom, it's right into another opposition, or boom, another explosive situation. So this administration has not taken time to smell the roses, and some people are like, well, that's a good thing. No, it's not, because you have to let the people know who are supporting you that things are getting done, and the country, it does not look like the image that's being portrayed on mainstream media.
I think that's right. And look, there's one other thing that goes in combination with that. The president's speech yesterday heralded a strong economy. Now, we got plenty of things in the economy that are problematic, and people don't feel good about the economy. So you got to be careful about the tone. Right. But one of the interesting things was that people do feel concerned about prices, because inflation drove prices up. Our wages haven't kept up with them, and people are, trying to take the family out to dinner, or trying to plan a vacation, or thinking about a household purchase, and they're looking at this and getting sticker shock.
Yeah.
Well, and the Democrats are making an issue of this, affordability. The president talked about that in Detroit, but he dismissed affordability as a hoax. At the same time that he's saying, I'm going to make things, affordable for you. You can't have it both ways. Better for him to if he is really going to put an emphasis on, I'm going to make an economy strong enough so that you feel prosperous and secure, then he ought to stop talking, dismissing the affordability issue as a hoax.
Because I think sometimes the best, and with this administration, you can get some straight talk to say, is to understand that the effects of the previous administration, it's going to take a lot more work and time in a year to get it done. I think you have to remind them where we're coming from. And at the same time, you have to understand that you are doing this with all the movements or all the decisions or policies that the president is trying to enact. Every one of them is going to have 99% opposition from the Democratic Party, from the Senate, from the House. No matter what he does, it's because it's him.
Right.
It's not the thing. And you make and then this will get into those predictions, because one of your predictions, and I hate that I agree with you, is that we probably might have a split Congress.
Yeah. The Republicans, look, it's the second midterm election. And that's not the best time for any administration. And midterm elections are tough. If you go back to the modern history of our country, since World War II, there have only been two midterm elections where the White House party gained seats in the midterm election. 1998, Bill Clinton, the Republicans had overreached on the issue of impeachment, and the Democrats picked up a modest number of seats. 2002, George W. Bush's approval rating is in the 60s, like Bill Clinton's was in 1998. And Republicans pick up seats in the House. But otherwise, the White House party loses seats in the House of Representatives. And with the margin that we have today, it's going to be really difficult for the Republicans to hold on to the House, in my opinion.
And but that's kind of the way America has always kind of been a checks and balance, and typically you would want that. You would want both sides of the aisle represented, and you would hope that both sides would work together for the better common good. But we're not.
Occasionally, occasionally, yes.
But we're too busy calling each other liars and trolling each other on social media and stuff to actually get things done, which is a disservice to the American people. So on that prediction, I'm with you. And then another one, again, slower growth. I think we cannot emphasize, but it doesn't, coming from someone like myself or, saying this stuff, it has to come from the White House. We have to, the press conferences, and we have to have them say, listen, it's going to hurt. Because this is here's our plan. Here's how, and show us. He likes charts. So, he loves charts now. So maybe we need to start showing the American people, which you are the master of the chart, the whiteboard. Maybe we need some boards up to show them this is how this could work if you stick with us.
Look, one thing I learned when I was in the White House is under promise and over deliver.
Under promise, over deliver.
Really important now in the economy. Yeah.
Now, do you think there's certain things you think that will speed growth up, or is it just there's just so much untangling of the? I look at the last administration. Our economy was not like a fishing line that you thought you could get the knot out, and every time you pulled, it just got bigger and bigger. Next thing you know, you're cutting the whole line, which means you have to rerun the reel. And I think we're in the middle of the process of him trying to rerun the reel, but you also have to be careful about being too braggadocious. I think that's one criticism that I think is okay to say about President Trump is that when he's focused on doing something, he's 100% in. But I think sometimes you have to let the American people know that this is not going to be easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, back to the point about, talking about things that you're actually doing. I'm thinking about writing about this next week in the Wall Street Journal. Think about this for just a minute. When the government passes red tape and regulation, it adds cost to the economy. And we know the cost of the rules and regulations because when they flow through the process, the rule gets announced with a cost estimate of what it's going to require in time and money. That is put together by various entities inside the executive branch and certified by the Office of Management and Budget. So, for example, we know during 8 years that Barack Obama was president, roughly $800 billion of additional cost was added to the economy. Trump comes in 2017 and immediately undoes a bunch of that. And every dollar that he reduces in cost and regulation is a dollar that a company can use to invest in plants, equipment, or people.
Right.
Biden comes in and puts $1.8 trillion in additional cost on the economy in 4 years, to more than twice as much as Barack Obama did in 8. And now what is happening is that this administration is undoing a lot of that red tape and regulation. The president ought to be heralding this.
Yes.
But he doesn't talk about it. But again, think about it. If he undoes a bunch of that, what happens is that goes straight to the bottom line. That means American companies, big and small, have more money that they can invest in plants, equipment, and most important of all, people. And, it'd be great for him to be, out there touting that more. And again, under promise and over deliver.
And that's I need to live my life that way as well, under promise and over deliver. That's a great point. Now listen,
your wife says in particular you need to under promise and over deliver.
Yes, 1,000%. wise advice. Now listen, this is going to get a little hostile here. Now this ludicrous prediction of yours, you have Denver in the Super Bowl, which means the New England Patriots would not be. So I have. I'm understanding. Listen. I know you're running the numbers. There's some secret stat I don't know about here.
No. Look, when it comes to sports and culture, music and movies, I'm just winging it. Look, I was born in Denver, Colorado.
Okay, all right. There's some roots there.
Part owner of the Broncos, and I have to say the Bills are very impressive.
Yes.
Here as the season is drawn to a close, and they could be contenders. Are you a Bills fan?
Oh, I'm a Patriots fan, but I am well aware I think this is the most dangerous Buffalo Bills team that has been in the playoffs because he's beaten everybody he's needed to beat in the regular season, and he's the most experienced. He's been there, and he's not going to be. And I think this is safe to say across the board. While we got two young quarterbacks, in Denver and in New England, in the Texans, I just feel that his experience and the big games he's played in I think Buffalo is the favorite. I don't want to see it. And then, of course, if they get there, we know what they're going to do. So it's not going to happen anyways. I think the monster is probably Seattle, if I'm being fair. But at least, okay, I can respect the fact that because you have roots with Denver, that's why you made that prediction. So this wasn't like something you broke down on the board.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, I did not spend 2 days in consultation with everybody, in sports betting world and former coaches in the NFL and blah, blah, blah. No, this is emotional. I hope the Broncos have had a great season.
Yes, they have. And they got a great coach.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The games have been phenomenal. I think it's been a nice distraction, with the exception of the Pittsburgh game. It was down to the wire. It was every game mattered. And I think it was a good break for a lot of Americans just to get back to yelling at things that don't matter anymore. Being mad at your favorite team or trashing another team. That's the good stuff. We have to get back to that and not trashing someone because they have a difference of opinion on their policies or how they vote. So I'm hoping that at some point we can get back to all that. But if Denver, I think if Denver pulls through Buffalo this weekend, there's a good chance that your prediction will probably come to pass. I don't think New England's ready yet, but it's going to be great games, and I'm enjoying it, and it's nice to see that you're enjoying stuff. Now the board, your famous board. Now I've seen whenever you're on, I always hear people want to update the board. And I absolutely refuse. No. Yeah. The board is iconic. I'm hoping at some point I can get you on my podcast show or I could be gifted a board because I think it's the best way to make your point. Because for me, it says when I see you on the board, I think professor, educator, coach. Like what he's putting up there matters. And I think we have a specific name for the board? I don't think board is good enough name. Like we need to name this thing.
Well, I'm going to leave that to you. Me, I'm humble in the presence of the board, and I know what the board insists that I do, which is take the most essential point that I want to make and put it on the board in a way that it sticks with people when they hear it and see it.
Well, it does, and it's become its own thing, and I'm a big fan of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I sit down in the chair, and the first thing that somebody says in my ear is, "Do you have a board today, and how many do you have?"
Yes. So yes, this might be a marketing opportunity
in every
here for
facility around America.
This is capitalism at its finest. And thank you so much, Mr. Rove, for joining us today. Always a pleasure. I just every time I get a chance to speak with you, I always learn something, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for your time, sir.
Well, Tyrus, thank you so much. Congratulations on stepping in for who was the guy that you're replacing? I can't even remember.
Greg Kilmeade.
Kilmeade, yeah, great, yeah, Bob Kilmeade.
Yeah, you go. Yeah, Daryl Kilmeade.
This kind of lawlessness. I saw another video of 50 agents going into a public library to get one person. I don't even know the circumstances of that person. The violence, the complete impunity with which these agents are operating, despite court orders in many cases that have said this is unlawful, you cannot do this. We need to make sure everybody has an arrest warrant before somebody is picked up. We need to make sure that these people are not masked. We need to make sure that there is real accountability in in all of these investigations.
Well, boy, she just said a mouthful. Joining me now is a very good friend of mine. He was a mentor in my time in the WWE, and he is just doing a tremendous job. Mayor Glenn Jacobs, and of course, he's a Hall of Fame professional wrestler, and he's working on a Hall of Fame mayoral I think I'm very, very excited to have you here today. And just what I really want to talk about is Heroes Hill. But as I got you here as a mayor, I got to ask your take when you hear some of the things that are coming out of what's going on in Minnesota and Minneapolis. As a mayor, it's got to be a little uncomfortable for you, I would think.
Well, thanks for having me on. First of all, big man, I really appreciate it as always. Last night I was at an event in Nashville. We just kicked off legislature, just open session, and they had it was actually the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce had their big reception. So you had the legislators there, just everybody is at this thing. You also had about 200 people outside waving signs, cursing, screaming, blowing whistles in your ear, calling everyone that walked in a Nazi, F ICE, blah, 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 blah. And to me, it's like, okay, what are y'all trying to accomplish here?
Right.
What are you doing? Because, we politicians, we're kind of used to it. But you also had a lot of normal, everyday, average people, just business folks or whatever, walking through this. What are you trying to accomplish? I remember a few years ago, I was at the Right to Life March here in Knoxville, and that was right after Roe v. Wade was overturned. And so inside the room where we're having the meeting to discuss the march and everything, people were just nice, polite, just people you want to hang out with.
Right.
Outside the room, you have people screaming, cussing, throwing a fit, twerking, doing all this crazy, weird stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, even if I didn't politically agree with the folks in the room, there's no way I would want to be hanging out with the people outside the room because they're an embarrassment, and all we see now from the left is just this manufactured outrage. Yes. This doesn't have anything really to do with ICE. This doesn't have anything to do with immigration policy. This has to do with, I hate Donald Trump.
1,000%.
Every Republican is a Nazi, and I guess one of the things that really bothers me about all this is, I try to find common ground with people. I try to talk with folks. How can you have a dialogue with someone, when you have a legitimate difference of opinion, and I can justify mine policy-wise, but everything starts with, you're a Nazi and I hate you.
Yeah, this was something that, when I was younger, dealing with arguments with people, and you're exchanging ideas. And, with me, it would be like, oh, they dropped the N-bomb, or they'd be saying, oh, you big dumb jock, or you meet. And as soon as that happens, and now it's, of course, I'm Uncle Tom, or I'm part of the, the royal family of President Trump, whatever the insult is. But once that happens, that always told me one thing: you have no argument.
Right.
You yell and scream. It's the same thing when you catch somebody in a lie and they start screaming and yelling at you because you caught them. It's because they have no argument. And I think that's the disappointing thing. But you expect more from leadership. You expect more. As a mayor, when something like that happens, and this is the third time today I'm going to make another Scott Adams reference, but we are seeing two movies on one screen. But at some point, there has to be someone to be like, hey, this one, they're right. But you're 1,000%. It's whatever Trump is doing. They want a group that they want to fight and march for. People in Iran are going through some really horrible things right now, but we don't see that. Because you know why? It doesn't fit the narrative, because it's a little hard to see a Nazi helping a country of brown people. Like, it's shocking to me that it is all manufactured, because none of it is genuine.
We even look at the statistics, the deportation statistics under Trump compared to former presidents. They're not like
it's not a big thing. Obama, he was running everybody out, and he didn't have 10 million plus people, and some numbers even more, that just showed up.
Yeah.
So it's not even.
There were more deportations under Obama than there have been under Trump. But you didn't see the left out there screaming and yelling, "Oh my gosh, you're depriving these people, of their rights." It was just, oh, since our guy's doing it, it's perfectly okay. But when someone else enforces the law, then all of a sudden that becomes a big problem. And you're exactly right. The left has weaponized immigration. And it's gone from, one of my favorite things is I get to do naturalization ceremonies. And you see these people who've come here, worked really hard to become American citizens, want to be productive people, want to contribute to our society, want to chase the American dream. That's beautiful. Instead, what the left has done is they hey, just come on in, you get free stuff. It's even better if you belong to Tren de Aragua and, destabilize our cities and those sort of things. And again, they've weaponized everything. They've politicized everything. And it all comes down to, if you ain't on my side, I hate you. Their arguments, as you say, are intellectually bankrupt because they can't justify anything they say. All they want to do is scream and yell and call you names.
Well, the only justification is you're evil. You're terrible. And then here's the thing, and I've been in some situations where I said, how so? Like, what is it about what I'm saying that is so terrible? And it's always the same thing. It's because you're a man. It's because you're this or you're that, or you've bought it. It's just be whatever it is Trump did. I'm a guest. Make it easy for all of us. So we don't even have to waste time interviewing and asking. We get it. Because even when he does well, I think one of the things that just made me absolutely, I hate referencing The View because Gutfeld's obsessed with him. But when you have, and I don't like to give any of them recognition, so I never mention their names, but I think it was Navarro that was talking about how excited and happy, and she cried tears of joy that Moderna was up out of there. But it was the way it was done that she just can't sit right with. So the thing is not that the America did the American military showed why they're number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and liberated and took a bad person, a bad actor out, and they still can't give it to him because he didn't do it. He didn't do it with their permission and their blood. Like, they just find it doesn't matter what it is. It's literally like dealing with a bitter ex-wife. At this point, it doesn't matter what you've done. You pay support on time. You drop the kids off on time. You still did something wrong.
Well, I don't.
Yeah,
Lord, that's a nightmare scenario. You just said that we were married to the women on the View.
No, I said ex-wife. No. I wouldn't listen. I'm upset enough at you over the whole refusing to recognize Die Hard as a Christmas movie, but I would never, no matter how bad that feud goes between us, I would never wish that upon you or myself. But I'm just, in the terms of just good form, I'm just saying that no matter what happens, when you have a bitter ex or a person that is against you fundamentally, when you do something for the good of the betterment of humanity, they still will say, well,
it doesn't matter because you're a bad person.
You're a bad person. And you know what? I want to switch gears. I want to make sure we have more than enough time. Operation Hero Hill, from service to shelter. Let's get into this. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, and thank you so much for bringing this up. So Operation Heroes Hill, it's an idea that's been percolating in my head for a while. I'm friends with the folks at 9 Line. They do the apparel. You'll see their T-shirts. It's got the soldier rappelling out of the helicopter. They're a veteran-owned company, and they've done these tiny homes for veterans, homeless veterans. They have a couple of these in Georgia and South Carolina. So it's like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we could do that? Actually, I had one of our home builders here was talking about how they wanted to incorporate high school students into building tiny homes for homeless folks. And I'm like, why don't we do it for homeless veterans? And, it's
right.
just a good thing all the way around. We can address some of the issues with homelessness, and especially with our veteran community, as well as get our young people interested in the skilled trades. Yeah, construction, so what Operation Heroes Hill will do is it's going to create a community of 20 tiny homes for veterans who are having a hard time finding housing, as well as the wraparound services. The VA in the end will actually manage the facility. One of the things that's really cool about it, though, is these homes are being built at our high schools. So you have high school students building the homes with mentors from industry. Then eventually, once we're ready to go, and we're actually going to break ground on the project in February. Once everything's laid out, we just move the homes in. Then we have all the utilities stubbed up. All that work will be done hopefully by late spring, early summer. Everything will be ready to go, and I'd like to cut a ribbon on this thing in August or so. So it's just, and the community support has been unbelievable. I mean, just from not only the builders and industry, but just everybody. And one of the cool things that we're doing here too is, we're journaling everything. And we're just basically chronicling all of this, because we obviously, project like this, there's a lot of moving parts, and we've had some hiccups. We didn't know this, didn't know that, probably made a mistake here or there that we had to fix.
Right.
And as you know, often the most important thing when you're modeling something that someone else has done is don't do that.
Exactly.
It's actually understanding some mistakes that have been made.
Yeah.
But I have a great team, and we've been able to overcome all that. But we're basically putting it all together. And if someone else wants to do something like this, and we have been approached by other area counties, we've got the playbook, and here it is. This is how you do it. So I'm just really, really excited about it.
Because you guys have, it said, it's a small number, but it could be 140 veterans are experiencing homelessness in Knox County. And, some people would say, well, it's only 140, but you take 140 in every county in this country. Yeah. It's a big
But it's
number.
also 140 people that serve this country. So
Yes.
I think it's really,
yeah, I think but
really
it's like
important.
it's a caveat to where this is, if we were able to provide this service for veterans who are going through some hard times, you want to see it spread. So if you do have the playbook, it's not about having this isn't a money-making thing. This is a human being thing, and you're going to want, and I want to see it expand. And we should have communities like this for our veterans in every county in this country. I think it's one of the ugly stains that our veterans, when they're done serving, we don't have more for them when they come home. And and not just services, opportunities, dignity, respect. I mean, there's a million things. And luckily, we have the administration that is 1,000% in support of veterans. And we're seeing some overhauls, and we want to see better hospitals. We want to see, we should invest. We just watched $9 billion just get fleeced from, in Minnesota. If you would have gave us just a quarter of that, a tenth of that, there could be tiny homes everywhere, giving our soldiers, our men and women who serve, the help they need, and at the same time, dignity. And we will be giving our young generation some dirt under their nails, a trade without a huge college debt, and something to be proud of. We don't have to send them to Calcutta to build, huts and all that stuff. We have stuff right here in America, and this, I think, is exactly what we need to focus on. And this is something that I think everyone can get behind. And I would challenge other mayors, and you don't have to be in politics to use your platform. Use your platform to get there. Start helping out on the boots on the ground. If you need something to get passionate about, if you need something to protest about, you need something to get in there, and this group would be the perfect group. And here's the thing, you will get results from your participation in this, because this is a positive thing, and I am just super excited. And then, of course, let me get this out there for more information on this for the people at home who are listening and watching. Operations Heroes Hill at knoxcounty.org. So if you want to help, if you want information, if you want to bring it to your city, this I 1,000% stand behind this, and I think, and I'm going to see what I can do in my little city of Wellington, and just start getting this. Let's make this a movement.
Yeah. And seriously, anyone that wants any more information, wants to help, please reach out to us. As you said, you brought up a very important point. When we started this segment, we talked about just how separated we are.
Yes.
And this has brought people that maybe I wouldn't have worked with otherwise to the table. And the amazing thing is then, you find out, actually, I'm not a bad guy. They're not a bad guy. We probably have difference of opinions on some things, but we can work together on this. And that's at least a start to some constructive dialogue, big picture, right? So, and as you point out, about studies show that about a quarter of the homeless population around our country is actually veterans. And to me, that's just a travesty. My dad served 21 years. When he came out of the military, we were okay. But he had some struggles adjusting to civilian life just because his skill set. He worked on aircrafts. He was on aircraft carrier in the Navy. Then he was a load master on the C-130s in the Air Force. And where we lived, there wasn't an airport. You didn't have cargo planes and those sort of things. So he kind of it took him a few years to really get his feet under him as far as, his career going forward. But we were fortunate too, just because he was able to overcome that. A lot of our veterans, just when they get out, whether it's PTSD, whether it's other issues, or whether it is that, just not being able to retool, it just causes just problems.
Well, this is a
so
great
anything
cause.
we can do to help.
Yes.
I think it's actually, these people served us. We need to serve them.
Right. And I will be posting this stuff on my social media for information. And we're out of time. I milked it so we get as much time we can in this conversation. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Look forward to debating you about Die Hard real soon.
Sounds good. Have a great one. Thanks.
Yes, sir, boss.